He's got great-grandparents on both sides of the family buried here. He actually has a sister buried here. And as you can see here, lots and lots of relatives. I'm going to talk just briefly about his parents. Kurt and Edith Vonnegut, who were members of prominent German families here in Indianapolis, got married in 1913, November 22nd. Their wedding reception was probably one of the biggest private parties thrown in town, at least up to that time. It was down at the Oak Claypool Hotel. A guy writing about the party, well, there were 600 friends invited to the wedding reception, and they supposedly one of the measures of the party's success was that, according to an uncle, quote, it was estimated later that about 75 men and 10 or 15 women passed out cold from the consumption of alcohol. So that was one way to measure your success of your party, I guess. Very prominent families. His mom and dad here. Well, Bernard Vonnegut was a prominent architect in town. The Liebers family had started a brewery in town. So they were expected to do well themselves, and were started down that road when, and he was following in his father's footsteps as an architect, but then the Depression hit. And so his prime years, probably what would have been his prime years as an architect, were while the Depression was going on, and he had about one real commission during that whole 10-year period. So their finances kind of went down the tubes. He had been living in a big house at about 4200, 4365 North Illinois, which I think the city was trying to get somebody to buy so they could make it into a museum, but I don't know if that's happened. But they moved to a smaller house in Williams Creek. Kurt, the son, the author, was drafted by the Army. You know, this is when we're fighting World War II. He received a leave to come home on Mother's Day of 1944, which, you know, he knew it was his last leave before he was going to go to Europe to fight in the war. The night before he arrives home, his mother dies from an overdose of sleeping pills, which was listed as an accidental overdose. Kurt himself has written that he thought she did it on purpose. She had, you know, gotten married here with hopes of being, you know, a grand life. Then the Depression hit, things went down the tubes, and she never got used to that. And he said, you know, she probably killed herself as a result. But that's not the official cause of death. Kurt himself, the senior, the dad, survived for another, about 15 years. He died in 1956, another 12 years. He had cancer the last years of his life. He went down to a cabin he had in Brown County and pretty much became a recluse. He lived pretty much by himself. His sister would visit him every once in a while. Once he realized he had cancer, not just emphysema, he did not pursue any medical treatment, just waited to die. Started listening to his favorite song work, which was a classical piece called Four Last Songs by Richard Strauss. And it's in German, but some of the lines go, leave all your doings, O hands, forget all your thoughts, O brow. Now all of my senses wish to seek in the slumber. So he wasn't in a real good mood. And he eventually did die. Kurt himself wrote, actually I think this is a quote from a Playboy interview he gave in the 1960s when he was at his peak. And, you know, I bought Playboy just to read the interviews. There are two stones out there in Indianapolis, and I looked at those two stones side by side, and I just wished, I could hear it in my head, I knew so much what I wished that they had been happier than they were. It would have been so, I guess I'll quote it here, goddamned easy for them to be happier than they were. So that makes me sad. I learned a bone-deep sadness from them. So that's Kurt Vonnegut's parents. Okay, questions here?
Didn't he just pass away?
Yeah, Kurt Vonnegut himself died last, not this immediate April, but the April before,
He's
2007.
not gonna be here.
No, in fact, Kurt wrote in one of his last works, he mentions Crown Hill a lot in his writing, and in his novel Timequake, which was published maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but it was his last novel. He wrote, and this is, I think I can quote it verbatim, members of my generation left Indianapolis not to escape the powerful pull of Crown Hill, of gravity, which is everywhere, but the powerful pull of Crown Hill Cemetery. It got my sister I got my mom and dad, I got my sister Allie, but it won't get me. It won't get my brother Bernie, who also has died. As far as we know, his wife cremated him. I think that's public knowledge, and what she's done with the ashes, nobody has any idea, but we haven't seen her out here scattering them.
Got me. I still want to be frozen.
Oh, please.
I want to come back. You can clone my
Okay,
ass.
on your left, see another reminder that a lot of children died. We have a grave that is designed to look like a crib. There's an in-ground burial for that.
You know the cartoon, right?
Probably they planted flowers with it in the crib back in the days. As for Celia Burford, who lived only about 2 weeks in 1885.
There's a coyote up there. Oh, running right there across the field.
Oh. It looks like a dog to me. It does. How do you know it's a coyote?
Oh.
It's like a freaking dog.
Let's go try petting it. Let us know how friendly it is.
Yeah, right.
Tie a pork chop around your neck. Now I gotta walk back up this hill. It's easy coming down.
Okay, we're standing in the Fletcher family lots. They own, from behind that monument that's up there, you might have seen a round indentation in the ground as we walk by. Anyway, they own from that, then coming down the hill, I guess roughly here, all the way down to the road. Calvin Fletcher moved to Indianapolis in the 1820s, 1820, 21, when the city itself was probably only months old. His brother Stoughton followed soon after they became prominent in town. Stoughton was a big banker, loaned Crown Hill $50,000 that they used to purchase the first 250 acres. Calvin himself has left a 9-volume diary that's since been published by the Indiana Historical Bureau. So I could probably talk more about him than anybody else, but we're going to talk about what would be like his great-great-nephew, named Stoughton Alonzo Fletcher. And I could talk about this guy quite a while too, but we'll try to do this fairly quickly and maybe jump from place to place. I'll leave a lot out, but feel free to ask questions. Stoughton, born in 1879, as I guess I kind of led up to, was born into one of the prominent families, not just in Indianapolis, but in Indiana. His dad was the president of the big bank here in town, which some of you probably remember, even the American Fletcher National Bank. So, he was, growing up in that family, expected to eventually take over. Had high hopes and fulfilled a lot of those hopes. In the early 1900s, he married a lady named May Henley, whose dad also was not anywhere near that wealthy, but prominent here in town. She attended the school that May Wright Sewell had, the girls' classical school, so she was, I guess, learned from May Wright Sewell, not spiritualism, but 93,000 people. It's approximately 550 acres. It's the third largest non-government cemetery in the United States. I guess as a comparison, Arlington, which would count as a government cemetery, is about 660 acres. Because of its size, we actually expect to be able to bury people for another couple hundred years. So if you like what you see tonight, don't feel like you have to rush out and die. You can take your time and still get buried here. I don't technically work for the cemetery. I guess I'm kind of a contractor. So I don't know a lot of things as far as sales and prices and stuff like that. So don't ask me those kind of questions. But I'm sure that if you really wanted to get buried here, you could call up here Monday and they'd be glad to talk to you about all that kind of stuff too. So, but we're not going to concentrate at all on those kind of things tonight. Like I said, we're primarily going to talk tonight about some people, both well-known and not so well-known, but even the well-known people, we're not going to talk about what they're well-known for as much as